Hello, everyone. My name is Igor Tomych, and I'm CEO at Dash Devs. And today we're going to discuss really interesting topic with my co-host Dumitru Condrea. So, hello, Dima.
Nice to see you all. Nice to meet you. Yes, we have a very interesting topic today, a topic that generates a lot of discussions every time, even when you're sober, not only when after one bottle of beer. So the topic for today is product and engineering misalignment, or what goes first, product or engineering. Igor, what do you think about this?
I really love to start with the definitions because in my career, I think the biggest misalignment came from different definitions. And I'm coming from engineering background, and I think that episode is a great opportunity to hear our stories because I used to do a lot of engineering coding myself, and then I had the fortune to manage several projects as CTO, and it's engineering background. But Dimitri is coming from the product side, and I will start maybe with the definition of engineering. Fairly nowadays, all the digital products they software engineered. Definition for the software engineering is basically creating something that you can use online via digital channels on the mobile phones or the websites. And it's basically the process of creation from the specific tool, something that customers can interact with. So if there is no interaction, there is no product. And that's kind of the software. And that's a definition. What do you think how we can define the product itself as a business process?
Product itself, super simple, is those who are taking the product request or the ideas and transform them into specific streams for implementation and checking those streams of implementation. The ideas that product side is taking is always are coming from different sources. First one is customers' feedback, which is the simplest one. You just read all the feedbacks, you take a note, you understand what's the main pain for your customer, and you just implement this product change or product feature and ask your technical team to implement this. The second source is to take a market research, and based on market research that was made by super smart people that look on the market, make interviews with different focus groups, you can understand what kind of a pain your product can solve and what specific feature you need to add or to change to solve a specific product. There exists, of course, some internal request from the stakeholders that they may think or may consider this as one or another feature as super important, and they also come with such kind of idea. But per ensemble, it's super simple. You take an idea that you think will solve customers' pain or customers' issue. You transform this into from simple words into a specific set of actions, instructions with mock-ups, and give it this to implementation team. Doesn't matter, it's a technical team or our team.
May I suggest here one experiment? Because I'm always trying to understand the things by kind of going this in my head. What will happen if a specific position will not exist in the team? So, with the technical resources or engineering, it's quite clear there is no product because even though you have requirements, nothing will be created, committed, built it, published to Apple Store or published to AWS services. So, how we can maybe approach the same way with the product team? What will not be happening or not created if there is no product person in the team?
I'm more than sure without a product team, a technical team can exist because a technical team can play a role of a product manager, product owner. Someone from a technical team can do this. We don't know if it'll be good or bad quality for such kind of a product owner, but someone from technical team can be a product owner. And very often in different startups, specifically technical startups, first months of this startup, someone from technical team most of the times is the product owner, the person who see where the product has to develop. Of course, he doesn't have experience to be maybe a very good product manager, to build frameworks, managerial frameworks, to build tracking, but at least a product vision he can deliver. And this is why a technical team can live without a product team. When vice versa, it's harder, except some last period of time, there exists vibe coding, and you already can, as a product, can survive without having a technical team. Again, it doesn't mean that the product will be good, what the product you'll deliver will be good, but you can survive already without technical team too.
I can reference to your estimation as good product. And may I suggest a little bit of the putting into the tested criteria? My assumption and my vision so far that you can understand that someone at least doing the position as a product that actually the digital or the service or the goods that you're providing to your clients, they generate in the margin. So in my world, I kind of value both of them. And I think they kind of play the as yin yang role, like they coming together hand in hand. the idea is that technical people, they always can build something that works, but it's much harder to make it as a business model. So my definition of the product manager is someone who from technically working product making a business model which is marginal for the business. It might be a longer period of time, it might be shorter, it might be with investor money, without investor money, but the whole tested criteria that it's going to generate the margin for the company which developed the product.
I agree with you because product team is all the time trained to take the initiative, deliver, roll back in case if something bad is happening, or continue to develop another stage. So this SDLC cycle is one of the main responsibility of a product team. And product teams know how better to put some invention or feature on the market. Their decisions will influence if a product will get at the end of financing from an investor, or they'll have a lot of subscriptions from simple users. But in the same time, we cannot treat a technical team as being, useless without a product team. Because I saw in my experience, and even you, Igor, you're a technical guy who learned to build businesses, and a technical team, someone from technical team, can do the same because a good CTO or a good team lead, he knows to work with SDLC. He knows how to think about an idea, about a feature. He knows how to write it. He knows how to ask other people to do it correctly, how to test it, how to deliver. In case of mistakes, bugs, roll it back and deliver again, and so on and so forth. So a technical leader also has this role of product manager, and he can cover a lot of good things. Unfortunately, not so many technical people are able to focus on the business side of a product because most they've had looking on technical parameters. Most of the developers are looking for making the product looks better and better. But the product team, the business team, sometimes take hard decisions and harsh decisions because sometimes they can roll out a product that the majority of technical team will consider as a green product, a mature product. But some business needs can request this. And this is why this is the main difference between a product and a technical team. A product team, sometimes they have to take very, very hard decisions.
And to clarify to our listeners, I would say that there is kind of difference having the person in the team and having the position because as you rightly said, sometimes startups they start in, especially the technical founders, they start in with the no product positions. Although someone from the team is executing those responsibilities. So having the position doesn't mean that you don't have these responsibilities in the team because someone who is writing the stories or someone who is describing how the future interface or the business flow looks like is actually doing the part of the product team and setting up the software development lifecycle or the way how the team is delivering is another angle, and delivery process sometimes falls into the responsibilities and accountability of the product managers. I think so far we have a good like a tested criteria. If there is no engineers who are doing the tech, there is no product. If there is no product person who is doing the responsibilities, there is no margin. So what do you think, what are the parameters that influencing the time and speed to the market and then kind of checking the business model? Because I will clarify in my head, right now the market is kind of the red market. We see that all the business models in financial world, they already exist one way or another. Like blockchain is a full life cycle. We have tokenized this, tokenized that. We have all the old school fiat services. And do you think that right now the time to the market is important when we are delivering something new? Like, do we really need to care about the speed or the quality, or what are parameters that are influencing the potential success of the product on the market?
Tricky question because sometimes when you want to be very speedy, you can make mistakes. In the same time, you still need to keep your team very agile to market changes. Fintech market, you also know, Igor, it's very flexible, it's very agile one. So all the times you have to look very cautiously at what's happening on the market, react quickly and promptly. But fintech market is a very specific market because there's a lot of compliance, KYC rules that are not so changing so quickly and adapting so quickly. And what I honestly and true think is the key of success for any kind of product is not the innovation, it's not the speed, even if a dose of innovation, a dose of speed must persist. I think the best key for success of a fintech product is to take a look around, see what your competitors are doing, see what kind of mistakes they are doing, and try to replicate only the best cases, the best scenarios they already did. Or maybe sometimes just take the worst case scenario they did, learn from their mistakes and do it differently. But you need here a big dose of intuition to be sure that this will happen. What do you think? What is the single or the most important goal for a product team, a product side, business side of a IT team or fintech company? Is just earn more money, or maybe to provide innovations, or maybe to provide scalability? What do you think is the most important?
For me, there is a simple, really simple answer for that. It's added value for the customers because no one is using financial products with the current diversity because it's scalable. Like you're installing an application, you're going through the compliance processes, KYC, KYB for the companies, not because it's scalable, but because it adds something that you cannot get from other place. And we know it from our experience by using a lot of digital services. Like take examples from non-fintechs like streaming services. You're choosing out of the catalog and availability in your country for the specific releases rather than any other parameters. Or maybe the case with the Spotify. Recently, I was reading the thread why there is nothing similar with the movies. Or we actually have in the movies, we have studios who have streaming applications, but we have nothing similar with the record labels. And I think it's a good example that the money is just the projection of the added value. Spotify has a specific niche and well known, well respected brand because it added a lot of values for the customers. You're registering once, it's a business model. You're paying flat fee. It's not something used to be with iTunes that you pay for each song, for each album, and you can stream as many times as you want. It's a flat fee. But another one, which is really important on top of the pricing, is usability because other platforms existed like a Microsoft released Zoom. There was some platform with a subscription, but even there is a series about Spotify, how they made the difference between delay between clicking the button to play and playing the track almost non-existent. So that's kind of the motto, I would say, nowadays. We have to roll out the products which adding value to the customers, and it might be different fragmentation. It might be mass market, it can be niche market, but something that was possible, even maybe was possible to do before, but the business model and the approach that the product gives you to you, it's adding something as a like easy to use, as a timing, as a business model, as a pricing. So I don't think we need to think about scalability because most of the startups and the product, if they're not released in China maybe or India, they don't need to think about scalability until they reach a specific level. And once again, there is an example even with the MySpace. I don't know if you guys remember that there was another social network and it was written in old, really unusable technology. And they managed to have kind of 500,000 users with the code written like not the best way, and that they did some updates. So I think everyone, despite being from the product team or from engineering team, we should ask ourselves, is it something the product that end customer will love to use and it will solve the specific issues for this customer? That's why I really like the approach, eat your own dog food. If you're using the applications that you're writing and it's adding value to you, that it means something.
Sometimes you need to, in fintech, to pay attention also not only on what the customer wants, but also what regulations are requesting. So sometimes the best dog food that you would love to eat can become a little bit sour, only because there is a gram of salt or gram of pepper coming from regulators that are asking you to do a specific thing. Before, and I think it's very good to think also and to discuss before misalignment between product and technical team. Maybe there is a misalignment, and all the times are such kind of situations when product team and compliance team, which by the way, from the perspective of technical team, is one single thing. And between those two teams exist also disputes. Product managers, project managers, scrum masters, sometimes they can just, put under low priority some compliance request, product request, and because like, well, we'll solve it later. So also we have to think that before misalignment, before negotiations between a technical team and a product team, scrum planning session or at weekly planning session, PI planning, wherever, there is also a negotiation between product team and product compliance team also.
In my experience, I would say the teams that I worked with, the idea for the compliance was as making a hole in a boat. So you cannot reach any destination if your board is thinking, and it's usually super critical to make sure that all the compliance processes they aligned with the legal team and compliance team, and there is no holes in this process because even though you have the super nice yacht, it carries a lot of meters, it's super fancy. If it has a hole, that's a matter of time when you will be exploring what is the on the bottom of the sea with the different fishes. So I would say that's part of the beauty and advantages of the fintechs, because in one way it's not a green field as social media, whatever. We have a strong food from regulators to set the high bar what should be done in those products, because we need to make sure that the customers are known. And I think even the term know your customer, it kind of worm really good, because we need to know your customer. We don't need to check. We need exactly who are those stakeholders. We need to understand what are the incentives, why they install in applications, why they're using those financial services. And that's why I really admire the financial industry, because it has much more connection with the customer, although it has the guardrails, which I oversee as a really positive overview from regulators. Sometimes, yes, it creates the struggle, it creates additional rules or even efforts for executing. But in overall, I think it's much better than building the social network, which is filled with the bots, with the fake news, stuff like that. You cannot do this with the financial services. You cannot create fake transactions. You cannot fake issue cards. You cannot fake and steal money from people, which is making it more appealing for engineer and more appealing for learning deep down what is happening and making sure that this boat is successful and heading to the right direction.
Absolutely correct with the mentioning of know your customer. I think in fintech, what we do not do with our customers, we just don't invite them for an ice cream or a coffee somewhere outside, because we know a lot of information about them, legal information. And very often we have a real feedback from them, most of the times angry one, because fintech means that we are working with money. Doesn't mean it's fiat or crypto. We are working with assets, we're working with money. And when topic comes for regarding money, assets, people are very, very cautious. And this is why we all the time we are getting a lot of feedback. We are lucky from this perspective in fintech segment that we have this connection and communication with our customers. Unfortunately, not all the time this communication is a very good one, proactive and positive. But if to be very pragmatic, we are gathering a lot of information about them, not only legal, but behavioral information. We know if we are developing a card product or an IBAN product, we know basically their behavior. I mean, we know how often they're making some kind of expenses, where they do this. Even we can understand sometimes indirectly what kind of a products that person specifically likes. And because of this, we have a huge amount of data that we can indirectly use for developing some new feature for their best behavior. Of course, with compliance approval, of course, we just cannot come to a technical team and say, hey, I need, I don't know, a refund button. I want refund to make automatically without any kind of, because if you write like two-step feature as a product, technical team will look at you as some naive guy, because wait, there is a lot of ledgers, between how this refund is request, how the API works, how the callbacks are works, everything you need to understand this in the technical architecture. And also very important is you need to understand how works the compliance architecture. So this is why from one point we know a lot about our customers, really know our customer, but we at the same time, every time we want to make a change, we need to be very cautious if this is compliant, and if it's compliant, we need to take into considerations all these kind of ledgers. Because as I said, when you have a lot of information about the customer, you have a bigger responsibility, and rolling some of the features are much harder to implement.
To come back with our initial topic, like the misalignment between product team and engineering, I think the point that you shared is really important, because one of the lowered efficiency, I think, exists in the teams because there are different motivators. And having the proper roadmaps and goals, like what we would like to achieve as a business, why we think this business model is important for our clients, and how we can together think how to achieve that. Because from my experience, sometimes there is some kind of rival process or competitive process happening between product team and the engineering team, and the important approach is actually to share the goals and the insights, how the product is performing, what are the things that we should do to make it more feasible for our customers. And another one is to make sure that the engineers understand that, because in the teams in efficiency, I saw sometimes like different games to be played, because product usually have an access to the C level. Usually the product team is reporting the metrics and KPIs. And sometimes the information is hidden and not communicated properly with the technical team, then it might even happen from the engineering team. There is no appetite and motivation to understand what we actually building as a product. Like, I'm just opening Jira, I'm executing the task as is descripted, maybe as Italian like approach, and not doing the things which are facilitating to get the final results, but just executing whatever was said. And I think aligning those two teams with a good understanding and keeping the same goals for the execution, it will allow to execute the fintech projects faster with the better results.
Faster execution for better results in fintech sometimes can be also dangerous. Just imagine the fact that, for example, I don't know, during A/B testing or even during real processes and operations, someone found a fraud ring. I don't know, during onboarding, for example. Someone, a PM, usually that's a PM, take a decision that this fraud onboarding, one of the onboarding steps has to be taken out. And conversions just blow up. I mean, like 20%, 40%, wherever. You just allowed to much more possible fraudsters in the system. Your suspiciously activity report is just increasing because compliance team is all the time ringing the bells that something wrong is happening, or a lot of more chargebacks, more frauds are trying to happen. And here comes a question. When we do everything in speed, has someone the right to have the veto right against one or another implementation? And if so, who are these people? Beside the compliance, because compliance can be advised sometimes during the developing of a feature and sometimes cannot. But if compliance team is not involved, who has the right of veto in the moment when we try to speed up the processes? Maybe technical team.
Hear me out. I think faster doesn't mean that it shouldn't work as a business, because that's why I really love definitions. The technical team accountability is to implement something which is working as a business model. So the responsibility for making sure that it's not a threat for the business coming from the product side. And that's why the acceptance and dry runs, acceptance of the feature, quality assurance is happening before rolling out all those things to the production. And I think it's good always if the technical team has an appetite and motivation to think and highlight the things which are potentially the threat for the business. But that's why the product team exists. And faster doesn't mean that we are compromising the hygienic level of the business, because the easiest way to onboard customers to give anyone online an ability to create IBAN to issue the card, and then a lot of people all over the world, from sanctions lists, from PEP lists, fraudsters, will create accounts and they will work with the product. But it's not faster because it's compromising the business model, it's compromising the licenses. And I think that's really important to, when we say faster, is not meaning that do whatever it takes to release the product, but do whatever it takes to make sure that the update is adding the value for the end customer. Because we're not building the products for the fraudsters, we're building for the customers. And if the customer is benefiting how the onboarding is done, even though they were asking additional question, because we'll keep our license, we will go through the audits, we will be a reliable and trustable partner for our customers for a longer period of time. That's a benefit for the customer. So I think definition plays key role here with understanding who is responsible for what and what is the accountability.
Nevertheless, returning back to my question, who has the right of veto between technical and product team? I think, and I'm sure that you also will agree with this, it's a product team. The product team has the right of veto. But I'm not sure if it's correct when the product team is providing ideas, let's call it like so product initiatives. At the same time, they have a right of veto. So maybe the right of veto has the technical team. What do you think?
It's two-stage project, or it's a twofold approach. What we've been using, that actually the first feature before taking into the execution is approved by a technical team that it can be implemented and it's sufficient to be implemented. Because in my experience, I've seen a lot of thousands of issues because something for the execution was taken as ill-defined, like do the nice trading. What actually it means, like what types of orders do we support, what are the rules, who's maker markers, and etc., etc. So the first stage is actually approving the idea, moving from the product team to the technical team. So stage one, the technical team is saying, yes, it's good to be taken into the execution. We have all the inputs. Something definitely will be cleared out during the execution, but in high level, there is no blockers. Then the technical team is implementing. And basically, after the implementation, the product team is accepting back from the execution that it's exactly what they needed. It fits into the business model and it can be rolled out into the production. So I think that's a really essential two-step process, which allows to kind of filter out all the ill-defined or something that cannot be delivered, because I've seen in experience the inputs which never was possible to implement, and it kind of filters out the, let's say, bullshit in the input, but it also allows to filter the bullshit in output. So that's kind of my go-to plan.
I think the first who has the right veto is the compliance team. So that most of the times they playing a role as a product managers or product owners of some initiatives. So yes, that has to come from product team, mostly because product team knows how the business works better, how some kind of a business models are applied better, and how to work with the customers.
That's true, and that's a side for the acceptance, because let's assume that engineering team, and that's kind of proven with the vibe coding. So basically, if you have a magic box where you can type the expectations from the product and somehow get the final product, and you can test and roll it out on the production, you kind of eliminating the process of the software engineering. And there was a like a joke that it would be good if engineering guy is saying it would be good if I would have the magic box where I can write anything that I want, just put it there, and then somehow magically it appears. And the project manager sitting next to it, to the engineer, is saying, "Hey, actually, Jira is working this way." So in my understanding, it's always really good to understand that there is no simple things. Like, it's not the question of approving something, it's a question how to build the software development or product development lifecycle, which is taking all the important inputs from different stakeholders, because it might be financial team, especially when we're talking about complex financial models like buy now, pay later, like a loan originating, like a trading. There are a lot of inputs, not just from the compliance team, but also from the financial team, because even the product team might lack the knowledge of the specifics of the financial processes. They should be built into the requirements. They should be confirmed with all stakeholders. After that, taken in the execution, execution also requires the quality assurance process. And in the final call, if we're saying like press the release button, or who's approving pressing the release button, I think that's definitely product team. But the huge world and a lot of efforts exist before that.
Usually, when you want to measure what kind of a misalignment exists between a product team and a technical team, is so-called measurable gap diagnostic. And basically, it's a super simple instrument. You just take three product managers, three engineers, and ask the same question regarding the same product or set of a product features or initiatives. And if you're not lucky to have six different answers, it means there is a huge misalignment between the teams. If you see in your team that or in your product exists kind of some kind of a misalignment, just make this experiment and try to see where is the gap. And very interesting is add to this group of three engineers and three product, add to this group at least one compliance officer, and you'll find out that it can appear the seventh option or the seventh opinion. Product managers have in fintech, they have to be at least with some small technical background to understand the technical team. At the same time, a technical team also, they need at least to understand how the businesses works. Why, for example, money is transferred in this way via this routing or another. So they have to understand some basic things. And if you spend some sufficient time inside of your team to build this trust between the teams and to give some kind of a veto rights to compliance, to product, even to technical teams in some of the steps, I think this misalignment can be reduced. And there is a lot of tentatives in different companies and different managerial framework to dissolve this misunderstanding and misalignment, but still it persists, not because we are stupid, but only because we are human, and this is how good things sometimes appear during some kind of a misunderstanding, during some discussions, harsh discussions and negotiations, what things needs to be prioritized and what things has to be put under low priority.
That's a really good one. Thank you for suggesting. Definitely, I will take into this some experiments with our clients. And I think we kind of covered a lot today. I didn't think with that we scratched deep and covered all the topics there. So it's just the beginning. It's kind of loading into the topics. But anyway, thank you for listening to us today and coming for this episode. Please, if you feel that there are some questions that we didn't answer today, please write into the comments, DM us on LinkedIn, and we are looking forward to see you on the next episodes.
See you next episodes, and as Igor already mentioned, just don't forget to subscribe, write the comments. We'll be happy to answer to all of them. Have a nice day. Bye bye.